Have you ever wondered how the representation of women in popular stories have evolved throughout the years? From the jealous stepsisters of Cinderella, who are constantly trying to pull her down, to the most powerful and pure bond of Elsa and Anna in Frozen. Now, this shift speaks volumes of the changing societal perspectives about women, a shift that feminist literary criticism was instrumental in bringing. Hello friends, I'm Riya Gandhi and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to understand what is feminist literary criticism, who are the precursors of it, and understand the key themes. Not only that, but we are also going to know the development of feminist literary criticism, which is popularly called as the three waves of feminism in literature. All of this from UGC NET point of view. So stay tuned till the end of this video and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. First, let us understand what is feminist literary criticism and how it emerged. Feminist literary criticism emerged as one of the branches of the broader socio-political discourse of feminism and feminist theory. Feminism was a political movement that argued for gender-based equality and called out against any kind of gender-based discrimination happening in any fields, at the same time called out against sexual objectification of women and patriarchal oppression that reinforced certain kind of stereotypes. Since feminism as a movement was not confined to 1 year or 1 decade and it developed over the course of its years, feminist literary criticism also developed over the course of the years. The works that have been published right now by the contemporary feminist writers, they have been borrowed by some of the women writers who wrote in the 17th, 18th as well as 19th centuries, who have grounded the true notions, the true foundations of feminist literary criticism. The best example that I can give you right now is Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of Rights of Women that was published in 1792. In this work, Wollstonecraft argued for women's education because educating women will help them acquire a certain status, a certain position in society. Not only that, but she also argued that educating women will help establish equality between men and women, where women will be treated as companions to men and not be relegated to being mere wives. Another woman writer who stressed the importance of education in a woman's life was Margaret. In her work, Women in the 19th Century, that was published in 1845, Fuller stressed on the importance of education. Not only that, but she believed that there were 3 pillars in a woman's life. They need to be education, employment, and rights. Apart from that, you also have the most famous speech that was provided by Sojourner titled as Ain't I a Woman, addressing women's rights issues. Now, Sojourner brought a different angle to the feminist cause, wherein she included and emphasized on empowering women of color, which establishes inclusivity within the feminist cause itself. And that's how you see one of the branches, one of the strands of feminism being Black feminism and African American feminism. These and other precursors have established the true foundations of feminism and also paved the way for the development of feminist literary criticism. Now, as a research method, what does feminist literary criticism involve? Basically, one of the most important functions of feminist literary critique is to revisit and revalue the classic literature which is predominated by male authors and understand how they have represented the female characters. So, understanding the common traditional portrayal of female characters by male authors and whether they are reinforcing any stereotype, finding out any patterns, whether they are creating conformist or non-conformist female characters. Not only that, but feminist literary criticism also looks out for the kind of language that has been used in the texts. As a feminist literary critique, it becomes our job to understand whether the language that has been used by the authors is it sexually objectifying women. At the same time, we also need to look out for the pronouns. Whether there has been a constant use of masculine pronouns, him and he, to talk about general people, the entire population, as if it is eradicating women's gender completely. Feminist literary criticism also encourages the critiques to establish a women's writing tradition. What does that mean? It basically means that as a critique, we can go back to the past and understand whether there have been any texts that have been produced by women writers, but they were marginalized, they were undervalued just because it was written by women. As a feminist literary critique, it becomes our job to establish the significance of these texts that were marginalized during that point of time and establish their significance in the present era. Last but not the least, it becomes our job as a feminist literary critique to analyze the relationships between men and women and how they are represented in a particular text, try to uncover whether there is any hidden power relations, and focus upon the patriarchal oppression, how it is depicted and how it is resisted. Having acquired a foundational understanding of what feminist literary criticism is, let's understand how it developed over the course of these years. And it developed in close association with the changes that were happening in the broader socio-political discourse of feminism. These stages of development are often called as the three waves of feminism in literature. The first wave of feminism happened somewhere between 1700 and 1920 as a result of women's suffragette movement in Europe and America, where they fought for their right to vote. The first wave feminists wanted equality with men. They claimed that they should deserve the social, economic, and legal rights that men enjoyed. They wanted to establish that equality and they wanted equal rights with men. That is why the first wave feminist movement is also called as equal opportunities feminism or equality feminism, since the first wave feminists focused more upon establishing that equality with men. Apart from Mary Wollstonecraft's A Vindication of the Rights of Women, which inaugurated the first wave of feminism, you also have Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, which is a remarkable text for the first wave feminist movement. In A Room of One's Own, Virginia Woolf has basically argued that artistic genius, especially writing, is not something that one is naturally born with or naturally endowed with. It is a privilege that a lot of male writers during that point of time enjoyed because it led to the fulfillment of two of the most important criteria. First, a room of one's own, and second, financial independence. Both of these things were denied to women during that point of time, which led Woolf to conclude that women's oppression in society is not a natural order of things. Rather, it is a result of patriarchal oppression and their limited access to wealth. The second wave of feminism roughly began from 1960 to 1980. It was primarily inaugurated by the French existentialist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir by her groundbreaking work, The Second Sex, that was published in 1949. In The Second Sex, Beauvoir has provided one of the most radical and unconventional notions about feminism, which is captured in just one sentence. And that is, one is not born but becomes a woman. This entire statement captures the gist of second wave feminism, which basically means that gender is radically different from sex. wherein she's trying to say that men and women, yes, we are biologically different from each other, but when you're talking about gender, it is a societal setup, which means that there are certain roles and expectations that confine men and women. As a result of which, Simone de Beauvoir concludes that women's roles in societies are often relegated to the position of other to men. These ideas paved the development of second wave feminism, which was also in close association with a lot of radical protests and movements like the anti-war protests when America was in war with Vietnam, the lesbian and gay rights movement, black rights movement, as well as the student revolution. One of the most important movements during this point of time were the protests against Miss America pageants, wherein the radical feminists argued against and challenged the commercialization and the sexual objectification of women by the oppressive patriarchal cultures. One of the primary features of second wave feminism was that they transcended beyond the equal rights movement which captured first wave feminism. Here, they talked about how women's identities are confined to their bodies, where women's roles in society during that point of time were only confined to as a mother because of their child rearing and childbearing capacities. Inspired by Beauvoir's work, these feminists of the second wave movement differentiated between two categories, wherein male and female largely talk about the biological differences and are associated with the sex of a person, whereas man and women talk about the societal setup and are largely associated with gender. According to these feminists, gender is something that is socially constructed by the roles and expectations that are set by society as to what a man should do and what a woman should do. Apart from Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex, another seminal work which led to the development of second wave feminism was Kate Millet's Sexual Politics, published in 1969. In this work, Millet has talked about the representation of women in literature within a largely patriarchal setup. Apart from radical feminism, second wave feminism was also responsible for an offshoot like liberal feminism. And one of the most seminal works of liberal feminism is Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique, that was published in 1963. In this particular work, Friedan has talked about that there is a lot of discontentment within white, heterosexual, middle-class American women. They feel this frustration with their lives because they lack that socio-political power. As you can see, the second wave of feminism led to the development of a lot of offshoots, of a lot of branches of feminism itself, wherein you see the development of Marxist feminism, feminism associated with language, feminism associated with the unconscious mind, at the same time lesbian feminism. It has become extremely eclectic, at the same time dynamic. These offshoots, these branches of feminism are extremely important today, and we'll discuss all of them in part 2. All of these branches of feminism opened the movement to global influences, which marked the beginning of third wave of feminism. It can be captured in the years from 1990 to 2007, wherein a lot of other things were also happening in the world. For example, communism was dying. There was this rise of post-colonialism. At the same time, technology was rapidly advancing. So you see the influence, the penetration of technology into these movements as well. That's why this movement is largely characterized by two important features. The first, outright rejection of norms, blatant rejection of any societal, cultural, any kind of norms. And second, the obvious influence of pop culture, wherein popular culture was considered to be a political strategy to influence thought. So you see, a lot of women during this point of time, inspired by popular culture, wore red, bold lipsticks and high heels, not to make a fashion statement per se, but to assert their identities unapologetically. So this time was also largely inspired, or you can say characterized by postmodern feminism. Now, postmodern feminism was largely advanced by writers like Judith Butler, who was influenced from post-structuralist and post-modernist thinkers like Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, and Jacques Lacan. Judith Butler gave one of the most important concepts of postmodern feminism, which later characterized the entire third wave of feminism. Now, what was this concept? She equated gender as a performance. Remember, we talked about Simone de Beauvoir and how she differentiated between sex and gender, wherein sex is largely associated with biological differences and something that we can't deny. But when you talk about gender, especially the concepts between masculine and feminine, these are some of the things that are created, that are fabricated by the society. Butler takes this idea one step further. And she talks about how gender is a performance. She does acknowledge that there are certain roles and expectations that society provides men and women and confines men and women. But then she says that this is a repeated thing. It is repeatedly done over and over and over again throughout generations that we think that this is a norm. But that's not. We as humans, as man or as a woman, we are performing these roles and expectations, creating it as a norm so that the later generations to come will also think this to be a norm. Judith Butler defined gender and sexuality as performances that are repeated over and over again in her most seminal work, Gender Trouble, that was published in 1990. Now, if you think about it carefully, you will realize that there are a lot of similarities between structuralist, post-structuralist, and the idea that was propagated by Judith Butler, especially the fact that gender is a performance. So, for example, when you're talking about structuralism, as Saussure said, the relationship between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary, which basically means that the word and its meaning is often associated with each other through repeated use, through convention, correct? Similarly, when you're talking about gender as a performance, the relationship between what is a woman or who is a woman and what is feminine, these two things are also not quite natural. They are acquired, they are performed through repeated use over the years, over and over again, and that's how these two concepts are mixed together. These were the three most important waves of feminism that led to the development of feminist literary criticism, at the same time broadened and widened the socio-political discourse of feminism. Apart from these three waves, a lot of critiques also claim that there is a fourth wave of feminism that began somewhere around 2012. Now, this wave of feminism largely talked about sexual harassment, sexual assault of women, rape culture, body shaming, among other issues. They banged upon social media and other technological platforms to raise concerns about these issues. With this, we come to an end of part 1 of feminist literary criticism. In this video, we discussed what feminist literary criticism is, how it emerged from the broader socio-political discourse of feminism, also some of the precursors and at the same time the major themes of feminist literary criticism. If you want to understand the works of each and every feminist in detail from UGC NET point of view and also understand important theories and theorists related to literary criticism, don't worry, I've got you covered. In my live classes for UGC NET English exam preparation, I am breaking down every complex concept and topic related to literary criticism, which will provide you the confidence to ace UGC NET English exam. Not only that, but I'm also covering every major author, poet, dramatists and their works related to the history of British English literature and Indian English literature in a very simplified and comprehensive manner. The best part about these sessions, that these are live one-on-one sessions, which means that I can provide you personalized guidance tailored to your needs and requirements, trying to fill fill the possible gaps in your UGC NET English exam preparation. If you want to know more about the courses I offer, the sessions I take, and the notes I provide, feel free to check out my TopMate page. It's topmate.io/Riya. I've shared the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. That's it for today's video, folks. If you found this video on feminist literary criticism informative and helpful, please like it and share it with other UGC NET English aspirants. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss any videos that I will be uploading on such important topics and concepts related to UGC NET English exam in the future. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one.